Real quick off the top, I am a true believer in our inalienable rights, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if you believe that as I do, then you have to be pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and anti-Common Core, because it violates all three of those. And I'm becoming known more and more as the person. I was at a meeting last week, and they said, they didn't know. They said, "You're that guy with that five-way test for Republicans." And I said, "I'm guilty. I'm that guy." And I think, cards are on the table. My five-way test is, do you believe in limited government? And if you believe in freedom, you have to believe in limited government, because the two are parallel with each other. When one expands, the other one shrinks. And in this country, whether at the federal, state, or local level, we're losing our freedoms every day because limited government is going away. And you can't have limited government unless you have less spending. If the government's spending more money, they're getting bigger. Well, they can't have more spending unless they have more taxes. So you better believe in less taxes if you believe in less spending. And also, from a regulatory standpoint, if they don't get you with the taxes, they're going to regulate you to death. So if you believe in freedom, you better believe in less regulations, because more regulations and freedom does not go together. And then last, do you believe in open and transparent government? Because you can't police the other ones if you don't know what they're doing. So if you don't remember anything else from me, remember my five-way test for Republicans, because I can tell you in this state, most of our Republican leadership, if not all, are 0 for 5. Yeah. Now in Dalton, when I was elected a little over 6 years ago as mayor, I'm not a political person for the most part. I was at a meeting also last week at Gainesville College, and they had politically incorrect T-shirts on, and I said, that's my party, politically incorrect. But in Dalton, we understood the importance of limited government. We'd lost our way there also. Since I've been mayor, we've cut property taxes 6 straight years, now by a total of about 28% during very difficult times in Dalton. We haven't had a county-wide SPLOST in 6 years. Probably my honorary campaign chairman in Dalton and Whitfield County is the Whitfield County Commission, because they're waiting for me to resign in March when they put another SPLOST on the ballot. They tried to put a SPLOST on the ballot 2 years ago without me approving it or whatever, and it was the heaviest defeat of a SPLOST in Georgia history. They realized, as long as I'm there, we're not passing any more SPLOST. And guess what? We still have been able to invest millions of dollars in new infrastructure, and we haven't dried up and gone away without those SPLOST. The last thing, as far as Dalton is concerned, we have combined business licenses, things like that, trying to limit regulations on businesses and cut most business licenses fees by 50%. And Dalton, in 2012, ranked 9th amongst all American cities in fastest growing incomes, because limited government works. If you look at the state from their side of it, when I say they're 0 for 5, they've increased the size and scope of the state government over the last, really, 10 years, but I'm just obviously zeroing the last 3 years with this current governor that we have. They've increased spending dramatically with this new budget that they propose that they'll pass overwhelmingly. They've gone from spending about $17.4 billion a year to $21 billion a year in just a little over 3 years. At this rate, if we re-elect this governor, he will increase spending and increase the budget in the state of Georgia by 50%. Oh, wow. That's Obama proportions. And guess what happens when you increase the size of government, whether it's state or federal? In the early 1990s, Georgia had a little over 6 million people. We had a state budget of about $6 billion, general fund budget of about $6 billion. And Georgia led the nation for about a 20-year period in per capita income growth. Now, a little over 20 years later, we've got about 10 million people. We've got a general fund budget of about $21 billion, and Georgia trails the nation in per capita income growth. The two are related, whether people like it or not. The bigger government gets, the less economic activity you have, and the poorer you get, as we are in Georgia. We rank 4th in America amongst all states in the largest percentage of long-term unemployed, more than double our surrounding states. We rank 5th in America now in a percentage of our population below the poverty level. And the worst thing about that is we're by far the largest state in the top 5. The 4 states ahead of us are states like Mississippi with 2.9 million people, New Mexico with 1.9 million people. We're a state of 10 million people. A 20% poverty rate is a disaster trying to handle and correct that. If you look at Georgia's growth in employment over the last 3 years, yeah, we've added jobs as the whole country's added jobs. We're adding jobs much slower than the national economy, the nation is as a whole. And those jobs, for the most part, are minimum wage and part-time jobs. That's why our Medicaid rolls are exploding. Georgia can do better than this. God has blessed us with tremendous assets. That's how we led the nation in per capita income growth from the 1970s through the mid-1990s. But we have wasted a lot of that activity. And what we need to do now is to shrink the size of state government. The first thing we need to do is cut the state income tax from 6% to 4%. Yay! I was at a meeting down in Houston County, and one of the state representatives down there disagreed the newspaper, or said in the newspaper that he disagreed with some of my statistics. But the second part of that too was he said if we cut the state income tax by that amount, it would take $4 billion in revenue away.
We'll be looking for you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, first of all, here it was one of our state leaders where our tax take last year, income tax take, was $8.4 billion. Well, you divide that by 3 when you cut it by 2%. My limited math skill says that's $2.8 billion, not $4 billion. That's your leadership, doesn't even know what the taxes really are in this state. And if you're a true limited government conservative, you know when you cut the taxes, economic activity goes up. And according to Christine Reeves, who was on the Tax Reform Council, that take would lower the revenue by about $2.3 billion. Well, first of all, he said, how are you going to make up the revenue? This is a limited government conservative. I know he is because that's how he campaigns every year. He didn't govern that way. What do you mean make up the revenue? We're going to cut spending by that amount. Same way we cut property taxes in Dalton, Georgia. We cut spending. It is possible. Now, we have a governor who was in the U.S. Congress for 18 years. That's why he didn't think cutting spending is possible. You spend every nickel that comes in. Second thing is we've got to get Georgians back to work with decent jobs, which are manufacturing jobs for the most part. I know a little bit about manufacturing. I'm from Dalton, Georgia, the carpet capital of the world. They pay $13, $14, $15 an hour and come with health care benefits, which also lowers our Medicaid rolls, which we got to do drastically in this state because it's going to bankrupt this state as fast as Medicaid's growing. We need to allow businesses, all Georgia businesses, not just manufacturers, to expense 100% of their capital purchases in the first year. Most of our surrounding states at least has accelerated depreciation. We don't even have that. If we do that, combined with great ports, a great airport, the best interstate system in the South, the best railroad network in the South, good university system, competitive utilities, we can become a manufacturing powerhouse. And for every new manufacturing job, it spins off 4.6 jobs in other areas. That's how you get Georgians back to work. Now, unfortunately, most Georgians are only well educated enough to get a decent job in manufacturing. We've got to do a better job with our education system. And I truly believe you can trace the decline of public education in this state and in this country. First of all, with the centralization of all the control and power into state houses and now into Washington, D.C. In 1900, only 10% of 18-year-olds in this country had a high school diploma. By 1970, 80% of 18-year-olds had a high school diploma, and during that 70-year period, almost total local control. When we started centralizing the control and power into state houses, and into Washington, D.C. in the 1970s, by 2000, only 74% of 18-year-olds had a high school diploma. Centralized control and power doesn't work. That's why the Soviet Union fell apart. Why do we go down the same road? And whether they try to make me more comfortable with, say, Common Core standards. Well, the federal government's not doing that. The state's doing that. Well, that didn't give me any confidence in Georgia either. The state's going to control that. Did you see the interstate systems last week with 2 inches of snow? Our prison systems are one of the most dangerous in America. We got a prison just to the west of Dalton. They can't even keep the locks on the cell blocks. We lost 180 kids last year in defects under state control. We want our state controlling everything? I don't. I want local school systems, local school teachers, and local communities controlling their school systems as they did 40 years ago. We can't operate a true, successful democratic republic if you don't trust your elected officials. The largest deficit in this country to me is not the trade deficit, it's not the budget deficit, it's the trust deficit in our federal, state, and local officials. Obviously, we got ethics issues in Georgia. And this Ethics Commission, number one, needs to be separate, funded separately, and not controlled by the governor, lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House, the very people they're supposed to be. But the number one thing we need to do after that is this. Our state legislature and our governor thinks it's important for local school systems, city councils, and county commissions to be under open meetings laws. They've exempted themselves from it. They need to be under the same open meetings laws that we are in local government, because it's amazing how much better government gets when you let the sun shine in.
Amen.
In conclusion, this is a great state with wonderful assets. I've already named what they are. We deserve better than what we have. We need to take back what is our birthright, which has become the most, or be the most powerful, successful economy in the South, not the sick man of the South that we've become. We're trailing most of the southern states now in economic performance. That should not have ever happened, should not be allowed, and by going back to my 5-way test for Republicans of do you believe in limited government, less spending, less taxes, less regulations, and open and transparent government. If we'll do that, we'll live up to our moniker of the Empire State of the South. And the way we do that is what Thomas Jefferson said we had to do a long time ago, which is this country's going to require revolution probably every 20 years. We're 250 years overdue. It's time to put a limited government conservative for the first time as governor of Georgia in this state and go back to what we were, the most powerful economy in the South. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Okay, we got time to take a few questions. First hand, yeah, yes, sir. Speak up, please.
When we get you to the governor's mansion, will you not only support, but will you lead this state to a constitutional carry state?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a good answer. Linda? Short too. Linda?
First of all, we already know the people we don't want having guns, they're carrying guns. And I want the people that we want to have guns carrying guns too.
David, I know that you have been one of our most ardent supporters here in the state and at the federal level for the fair tax. We have legislation right now that we're working on, hopefully to pass the fair tax in Georgia in the General Assembly 2015. Can we count on you when we put you in the governor's mansion to help us push this through?
Yeah, people need to understand the personal income tax, how onerous that is for economic growth. Because almost all small businesses in America, and I'm one, my clients are small businesses, we pay our corporate income taxes on our personal income tax returns. And when you do that, people need to understand that small businesses generate 65% of the net new jobs in America and most of the innovations. And as we have been going away, and small business in this state in particular, in this country, has been going away over the last 20 years. That's why you have not seen the rebound in economic performance you normally see after a serious recession that we had. The state income tax is the most onerous tax on businesses, and we've got to work toward eliminating it. The first step, obviously, is cutting it, but I'm not for right now cutting the state income tax and transferring that over to a sales tax for that first 2%. We need to cut state government by that amount. Then we can start looking at consumption taxes to do away with the rest of it. But right now, we need to cut state government by that amount and cut the income tax from 6% to 4%. But yes, I'm a supporter of that because obviously we're not getting small businesses going again in this state as long as we're going to tax them to death from a corporate level, and that's what personal income taxes do in Georgia, small businesses.
Just to remind y'all, we have our duck commander warning at 1 minute, David. That means the answer's getting a little too long. Marty, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Marty Harvey.
Yeah, Marty.
First, we have two states that border us, Tennessee and Florida, who have no state income tax. And what we're seeing is a lot of people, once they retire, move to those states for the fact that they are not taxed any longer and stay there 6 months and 1 day. Is there any way to eliminate the tax for Georgia to allow people to stay here.
Well, I think over time, the first step, as I said, going from 6 to 4, and then as the fair tax side of it, shifting most of it to the consumption tax after that also. But keep in mind, we got a state just the west of us, they rank 11th in personal income tax too, where we rank 41st. So we're surrounded by states, you know, that have a much better effective income tax rate than we have.
Chris?
David, I've heard
Yes,
lots
ma'am.
and lots of good things about you, but I've heard that you oppose E-Verify. Could you give us your reasons if that is true?
Yeah, it's from the E-Verify standpoint, first of all, understand where I'm from, Dalton, Georgia. Nobody's been affected by illegal immigration more than Dalton, Georgia. And we've been absolutely flooded. The reason I opposed E-Verify when it was first introduced, whatever, first of all, it doesn't work that well, and it does not get rid of illegal immigrants. But the real reason I did was I'm a small business tiger, and I'm not for any more regulations on small businesses, period. We've been regulated to death. That was my only opposition to E-Verify. It has nothing to do with illegal immigration. It has to do with the fact that small businesses cannot afford any more regulations. Now, would I do something to repeal that? No. That's what the state legislature decided they wanted. Fine. I would not oppose that at all, but there's no stronger person that opposes illegal immigration than the mayor of Dalton, because you come to Dalton, you'll find out what happens when a country does not enforce their laws.